Energy begins to inform matter, and when it does, the outcomes are really great. So when we see these high gamma patterns in the brain.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza's latest video is titled, What Happens to Advanced Meditators' Blood? Must Watch. If you're interested in the latest research on meditation and the human body, then this video is definitely for you. So, let's get started. Dr. Joe Dispenza starts off the video by discussing the latest research on how meditation can affect our blood. He explains that advanced meditators have been shown to have lower levels of cortisol and higher levels of DHEA in their blood, which can have a positive impact on our health and well-being. Throughout the video, Dr. Joe Dispenza provides in-depth explanations of the science behind how meditation can affect our blood. He also shares personal anecdotes and stories from his own meditation practice to make the information more relatable and engaging. One of the things I appreciate about this video is how Dr. Joe Dispenza breaks down complex scientific concepts in a way that's easy to understand. He also provides practical tips and advice for viewers to implement in their own meditation practice. In conclusion, I highly recommend watching Dr. Joe Dispenza's latest video on This Will Happen to Advanced Meditators' Blood, Must Watch. It's an informative and thought-provoking video that sheds light on the latest research on meditation and the human body. Dr. Joe Dispenza's engaging style and practical tips make it easy to understand and apply the information in our own lives.
If I thought that we were going to see the kind of measurements that we're getting even up to this past week in Denver, I would say, yeah, maybe we'd get lucky here and there. But I keep telling my friends and my staff, I can't believe this is the truth. Just can't believe it. This is really the truth. So we started partnering with the University of California, San Diego and their research department, their wonderful research department. A lot of great academics and scholars there that were interested in demystifying the process. And we started out last February, just before COVID, and we call it catching fish. We had control groups, we had novice meditators, and we had advanced meditators. And we wanted to see advanced meditators, people who do my work for more than 6 months, and they do it just about every day or 5 times a week. And novice meditators are people who came, saw the introductory courses, that really have a lot of experience, and then we just grabbed a bunch of controls that were husbands or wives or people that were there that just going to hang out at the hotel for a week. And we wanted to see what kind of dramatic changes. So we took a lot of pre-measurements and we took a lot of post-measurements, both brain scans, HRV scans, and then we drew a lot of blood, and we were looking up thousands and thousands and thousands of biological markers that cells produce when they're healthy and when they're sick. And we have sophisticated instrumentation that we have access to. And so right after the study, I get a call from the vice chair of research there, and he says, I think we need to talk. And I said, okay. And he said, hey, I love when he says this. We have some really compelling data. And we saw some people in the advanced meditator group came in like really stressed and really sick. And then in 7 days, there was a dramatic drop in their cellular function across the board when we looked at their plasma, like dramatic. So we started looking to see what is it in this blood that is so unusual. And so COVID happened, and we said, let's apply for a grant to do research for COVID. So a group of us got together, we wrote a grant, and we took the blood of one particular person who had dramatic changes, who, by the way, also sent in, unbeknownst to me, his story of his transformation was nothing less than supernatural, his inward event that was so transcendental. And we happened to capture him during that event. He had a HRV monitor on, and the amount of love that he was feeling was certainly a lot of love. It wasn't a little bit, it wasn't a lot, it was a supernatural amount. The amplitudes on his measurements tell us something profound's happened. Then we happened to capture his brain right after the experience in our post-measurements, and there was a lot of great changes going on in his brain. So when we looked at his blood, all of a sudden we got a story, we got brain changes, heart changes, and a lot of coherence. And when we look at his blood, we say, okay, something's crazy happening. So let's take a pseudovirus that acts just like SARS-CoV-2, and let's subject the control group to the SARS pseudovirus, see what happens. Let's subject the plasma of the novice meditators, and let's look at the plasma of advanced meditators. And as you would suspect, the controls, the cells in the plasma absorb the virus, and when it gets inside the cell, it produces a bright red field. So we saw the cells infected. Then we looked at the novice meditators, and we saw some cells were infected and others weren't, and there was some type of resistance. But when we looked at his blood, there was an absolute resistance to the SARS virus, and we subjected his blood before the week-long, and his blood was very infected. But at the end, when we subjected his blood to the COVID virus, there was a strong resistance. So then we took electron microscopes and we did a surface analysis, and you could see the cells, the actual SARS virus inside the cells of the controls. You saw in the novice some inside, some outside, but on his and a few others, you just saw the virus outside of the cell. So this is dramatic news here. So at this point, we've actually just yesterday found out that we isolated the molecule that's so important for this kind of activity, and we took his blood and others' blood, and we subjected it to cancer cells. And a cancer cell produces an enormous amount of energy. They're almost immortal. And the mitochondria in the cell, which are the lungs of the cell, the energy packets of the cell, the cancer cell are the ATP at their very high levels. Subject that cancer cell, uterine cancer cell, to advanced meditators' blood, and all of a sudden you see a 75 or 74% reduction in the energy in a cancer cell. Take that same plasma and subject it now to someone who has nerve cells that have the amyloid protein or the Alzheimer protein that's secreted during when a cell does its thing with Alzheimer's, and you see all those genes downregulate, like the cell gets healthy. So we're on this enormous discovery.
Discover more similar contents from our carefully curated playlist. Watch more informational videos from the top corner.
Now, we started looking closer at the brain function of certain people during a transcendental moment. An inward experience that's transcendent of anything you know. That's outside of the known. And the amount of energy that we're capturing in a person's brain when they have those moments it's so outside of normal, and it tends to be in these beautiful mathematical formulations that are just like the golden mean, that kind of spiral that makes up ears and shells and universes and everything else, the patterns, in pine cones and seeds and flowers. There's all the same pattern. So we start looking at the data, and the mathematical probability of something like that happening is statistically impossible according to the research. And if it did occur, it would happen as a random event that would last for a millisecond. And here we got this sustained states. So like if you're listening to me right now, your auditory circuitry is going. I'm talking, you may have a little visualization of what I'm saying, so you might get a little activity. But if you look at the brain, it's about 4% of the brain, maybe 5% of it firing at one time. So when you get this amount of coherence, what syncs in the brain links in the brain, so you get this kind of intense amount of order in the brain, and waves build on waves when that happens. So 28% of the brain is functioning in order as compared to 4%, and the person's having an arousal. And there's so much order taking place in their nervous system. Remember, stress is autonomic dysregulation. The autonomic nervous system dysregulates. The amount of energy, the frequency, the intensity is happening in the autonomic nervous system that's causing the person to feel an arousal, and the arousal is nothing short of ecstasy or bliss, and they experience wholeness. And so we see more wholeness reflected in their nervous system. There's the blindness, now it's gone. There's the deafness, and now the deafness is gone. There's the stage 4 cancer spreading to the bones, to the peritoneum. There it is, and then there it's not. The person's getting a biological upgrade. There's a person with a paralyzed limb from a stroke, and then now the person's lifting their arm above their head. Now, I have to tell you that when I see something like that, I think I'm more surprised than anybody, because you change the pattern in the field. You change the hologram in three-dimensional reality. It's not the tumor. Tumor's the illusion. It's the projection from source, right? It's the pattern that's in the field that's causing the projection. As an example, you take 3 stones and you drop them in plate, and those 3 stones are all dropped at the same time, and then you see those waves, the ripples, and they interfere. If you freeze that plate, and then you take a laser and you shine a laser through that plate, the frozen water, there's information in that plate, and when the laser passes through, you see the appearance of 3 stones suspended in the air. It looks like the stones are actually occupying space there. Well, that's exactly how it works in physics. The information is in the field. So if you have a coherent heart and a coherent brain, the interference is highly organized. And if we do that properly, the condition that's appearing in three-dimensional reality should actually disappear. And so we see it appearing and then disappearing. We're shortening the distance between cause and effect, between the thought of being well and the experience of being well. And it can't be matter doing that. It's got to be energy. And energy begins to inform matter. And when it does, the outcomes are really great. So when we see these high gamma patterns in the brain, and you see this beautiful balance between these low frequency waves that the heart is producing, going up a lot. That means that's energy in the heart. We see this at our community. Once that happens, the sympathetic nervous system gets aroused. And now the heart starts driving energy to the brain. It's telling the brain it's safe. It's telling the brain you're out of survival. You can create, you can connect. And when that occurs, we see delta waves, theta wave, alpha wave, beta waves, actually producing faster and faster frequency into gamma. Gamma is consciousness. It's awareness. It's an awakening. So the person is completely relaxed, completely in the present moment, and completely awake and aware. And I think that's the formula to live life. And it only takes one of those transcendental moments to realize that it's not coming from out there. It's actually coming from in here. And so we do a lot of brain measurements in real time. We do a lot of HRV measurements where we do a lot of coherence healings for other people. And we have people, we're looking to see with a Healy, if their Healy is synchronizing their heart rhythms to the healers and what kind of probability that is. We have random event generators in the room to determine, oh my God, this isn't just a random event. There's something really magical happening here. And our community is getting synchronized. They're getting really good at it. And if you're looking at a brain scan of maybe there's 10 people getting their brain scanned, and you see 5 out of 10 people going into that state, you got to look around the room and say there's 1,500 people in the room here. Maybe half the people are experiencing what this person's experiencing. That's exactly what occurs. So then when we looked at the blood, we had the time to look at the blood of the novice meditators, and that's 70% of our audience normally. And we look at the volcano chart, the plot of novice meditators, the enormous amount of biological changes that are taking place in 1 week. That anybody who looks at this, you see all these really unhealthy elements, and all of them just drop down. And 77% of the people have that kind of dramatic change in a week-long event. Now, they're doing that without getting anything outside of them. When they connect and they feel that arousal, that love, their bliss, they're not saying, oh, it's coming from out there. It's coming from within here. Now they're no longer looking for it out there. They're looking for it in here. And that's when the love affair begins. That's when things start to change, and you never want to miss a date. So I've been on research calls for the last week because these guys, we have scientists now that are so immersed in what we're doing. I love it because I talked to a scientist yesterday and he said, I ran the test 3 times. And I said, what'd you get? Same results. You ran it 3 times. I thought of another way to run the test. We ran the test another way. We got the same results. I can't believe what we're getting here. And we pretty much mined everything except the human body. And so there's just so much great things happening. And the most exciting part for me is that nobody's excluded. And we're not measuring anybody who's any more special than anybody else. And we have great elders that have the experience. We had 50, 100 kids under 25 years old at our events, and 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 9-year-olds fully in. Imagine who those guys are going to be. And I want that to be normal for them. So we're asking bigger questions. We have a research fund now, a research institute, and we're doing some pretty exciting things.
Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.